Quitting smoking is not easy. But there is one thing that can make it easier. A smoking addiction consists of several aspects. The main one is that nicotine triggers the release of dopamine, the feel-good hormone. It gives a feel-good experience. Another aspect is that smoking gives something to do. A pleasant activity. It is mainly these two aspects that make it so difficult to quit smoking. Because smoking has long stimulated the release of dopamine, the body itself no longer produces that amount of dopamine. Especially during the first days and weeks, the production of dopamine is so low that an ex-smoker becomes depressed. It gives him an unpleasant feeling. Gradually, the body itself starts to produce more dopamine again and that feeling disappears. Between 2 and 3 months after stopping, the body returns to normal levels of dopamine production. But there is another aspect that makes quitting so difficult. Someone who wants to quit, or has stopped, realizes that he will never have that feel-good experience again. But here I have good news for you. Let's take a look at the timeline of quitting smoking. Plan a quit day. The night before, flush the rest of your cigarettes down the toilet and put anything that might remind you of smoking out of your sight. 1. That first day is often not too bad. The motivation is good and the dopamine level is not yet at its lowest level. 2. The second day is more difficult, because the dopamine level is now falling further and further. 3. The third day is horrible. The dopamine level is at the lowest level. You become depressed, irritable and feel bad. 4. The first 2 weeks remain very difficult. The body itself still produces too little dopamine. Bringing back the production of dopamine to a normal level is very slow. 5. After those first 2 weeks, it gradually gets better from week to week, but the next 2 months remain difficult. 6. Only after 3 months does the production of dopamine by the body return to a normal level. Lower than it would be if you smoked, but at least enough to be reasonably happy again. 7. But now those other aspects come into play. You still miss having something to do. Pass the time with a pleasant activity. And still the realization that that pleasant activity, that feel-good experience will never be there for you again. But that is not the case. After 3 months, the body no longer asks for dopamine. You no longer have the habit of smoking, for example, after eating or in other cases. You are completely kicked off. To become addicted again, a certain minimum amount of nicotine is needed. It varies from person to person, but it is about 3 or 4 cigarettes spread over a day. So if you have completely stopped smoking for 3 months, you can occasionally smoke a cigarette. For example, you could even smoke a cigarette during the day and another at night. But that wouldn't be wise, because that way it quickly becomes a habit again. Not an addiction, but a habit nonetheless. You should keep anything reminiscent of smoking out of sight at all times, and you should avoid reassociating the occasional cigarette smoking with a fixed spot or pattern. Whether you still want to smoke very occasionally after 3 months is a decision that you better make by then. The simple fact that you realize that possibility is there will help you get through those difficult 3 months.